During the final exam of the college entrance exam, students were writing furiously when a boy suddenly shouted, "In 2 hours, a zombie outbreak will happen." Only I quickly handed him my paper and left, because my jade ring had also given a warning. 2 hours later, the campus turned into a living hell, and I, relying on the supplies in the jade ring's portable space, managed to survive. The last exam of the college entrance exam was politics, and all the candidates were writing furiously. I was pondering a question, unconsciously rubbing the white Hittian jade ring on my ring finger with my left hand. This was a keepsake left to me by my father, Jiang Huanin. The surface of the ring is smooth and cold to the touch, and I can't help but want to touch it. A year ago, I accidentally turned the ring 10 times in a row and triggered its mechanism, discovering that it held a secretive portable space of about 10 cubic meters hidden inside. 2 hours left. Suddenly, a hoarse voice broke the silence of the examination hall. I looked up and saw a boy sitting in the third row. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot, staring straight ahead. The invigilator frowned and said, "Student, please keep quiet. In 2 hours, the zombie outbreak will begin." The boy suddenly stood up and shouted urgently, "Everyone, stop the exam. Run for your lives." The examination hall instantly erupted into chaos. Some sneered, while others muttered under their breath, "Psycho." More people simply glanced up and then lowered their heads to continue answering the questions. The invigilator quickly walked over, pressed back into his seat, and scolded sternly, "Student, please sit down. No talking. If you say another word, I will record it as disrupting the exam order." But the boy acted as if he hadn't heard, struggling and insisting, "It's true. I dreamed last night that the entire city had fallen, and there were man-eating monsters everywhere. They will start with the school first." Just then, the ring on my left ring finger suddenly began to throb violently, like a restless heart trembling at the base of my finger. This warning had occurred 3 times in the past year, and each time it signaled danger. Once, there was a fire in the school lab. Another time, a drunk driver lost control of their vehicle on my way home and nearly hit me, and once my mother sprained her foot, resulting in a toe fracture. I abruptly stood up, lifting a corner of the exam paper. The proctor turned to me. "Do you want to disrupt the exam hall too?" The ring pulsed even more intensely, almost burning my skin. I swallowed hard. "Teacher, I want to hand in my paper." The examinees looked up at me. No one turns in their paper just 15 minutes into the exam. I heard Qin Yuxuan's low voice from the back row, "Jiang Yihian, you poor thing, can't even stick it out through the college entrance exam." I ignored her and quickly packed up my stationery. The proctor said sternly, "According to the rules, you can only leave the exam hall half an hour after the exam starts." "I have to leave now." My voice trembled, but it was unusually firm. The teacher shook his head. "No, that's the rule." The ring's pulse grew faster and faster, as if counting down. I glanced at the clock on the wall, 14:45, only 15 minutes into the exam. I sighed, knowing that the school gates wouldn't open until I had endured a full half hour. I sat there, killing time, writing not a single word, not even looking at the exam paper, my eyes fixed on the clock on the wall. At 15:00, I immediately got up to hand in my paper, even though I had answered only a few questions. The boy who gave the warning rushed out of the classroom before me. The playground was empty, and the school gate was packed with parents seeing off exam takers. My younger brother, Jiang Yizhu, had come specifically to see me off today. He was waiting for me at the school gate, and when he saw me come out so early, his mouth dropped open in shock. "Sis, how come you?" I grabbed him and whispered, "Listen, Ju, there's danger. We have to get back to the hotel right now." The ring's pulsation suddenly became violent and erratic, as if warning me that time was running out. "What's going on?" He stumbled a few steps as I pulled him along. "Did you finish the exam early?" I lowered my voice. Something big might be about to happen. Someone in the exam hall said a zombie outbreak would occur in 2 hours, and my ring has been warning me nonstop. My brother knows the secret of the ring. A year ago, when I told him, he didn't believe me at first, not until I took a bag of rice into the space and brought it back out right in front of him. Later, He also learned that my ring had an early warning function. Now his expression changed. Zombies. Are you sure? Where are we going now? I pulled him and ran toward the hotel. The ring has given 3 warnings, and it's never been wrong. This time, the feeling is the strongest. We're going to the hotel. There's only a little over an hour left. Going home won't make it in time. My home is very far from school, about 10 kilometers away. The roads are congested, so I might not even make it home before the zombie outbreak occurs. Since my home is far away, I reluctantly spent money to book a hotel room across from the school so I could rest well during the college entrance exam period. As we crossed the road, an ambulance sped past with its siren blaring, heading straight toward the school. My brother and I exchanged a glance, but neither of us said a word. On the small street across from the school, various shops were opening for business. My gaze swept over the fruit shop, convenience store, supermarket, and hardware store as a crazy idea took shape in my mind. Zhu, we need to prepare some supplies. I stopped in my tracks. Now, if a zombie outbreak really happens, I didn't finish, but my brother understood. He nodded. Sis, I'll follow your lead. I had no money. Every cent I had, after paying for the hotel room, left me with less than 100 yuan. I decided to go zero-cost shopping. At the fruit shop I passed by, boxes of apples and bananas were displayed at the entrance. I pretended to browse, and when the shopkeeper turned his back to me, my left hand swiftly swept across the shelf. 3 boxes of fruit vanished in an instant, stored away in my space. Hey! The shopkeeper's wife turned around just in time to see the last box of bananas disappear, and she screamed, "Thief!" I spread my hands, showing them empty. Who stole your stuff? I grabbed my brother and ran, with the landlady's angry shouts echoing behind us. Turning the corner, we dashed into a convenience store. I whispered to my brother, "Create a diversiongo chat with the clerk." My brother was clever. He pulled the clerk aside to ask about the cigarettes on the shelf, keeping him too busy to watch the monitor. I headed straight for the food section, where cookies, bread, chocolate, and canned goods on the shelves vanished one after another, as if wiped away by an invisible hand. The shop assistant was tidying the shelves, and when he turned around and saw them more than half empty, his mouth dropped open in shock. Thief! He grabbed a broom and charged at us. My brother snatched a few packs of gum from beside the cash register and threw them at the assistant. While he dodged, we bolted out of the store. Across the street was a small supermarket, and without pausing to catch our breath, we rushed inside. This time, it was even riskier. The supermarket had surveillance cameras and more staff. But I no longer cared about any of that. The ring's pulse quickened like drum beats, as if urging me to speed up. My younger brother stayed by my side, doing his best to shield me from the crowd. Within 10 minutes, we swept through the supermarket's food section, bottled water section, and daily necessities section like a whirlwind. The space quickly filled with bread, steamed buns, flatbreads, instant noodles, self-heating rice, mineral water, toilet paper, basic medical supplies, and a few bags of rice. When the supermarket security guard finally noticed something was wrong and sounded the alarm, we were already sprinting toward the exit. Stop right there. 2 guards blocked the doorway. My younger brother suddenly bent down, pretending to tie his shoelaces, but actually grabbed a handful of promotional plastic balls from the floor and tossed them into the air. The guards instinctively dodged, and we seized the chance to squeeze past them. Hardware store, I pointed at the last target ahead. Inside the hardware store, the owner was sitting behind the counter, reading a newspaper. We pretended to be ordinary customers, weaving through the shelves. Repeating the same trick, I collected hammers, nails, wrenches, ropes, several knives, and all the batteries I could find. Just as we were about to leave, the boss suddenly put down his newspaper. "You two, come here for a moment." My heart nearly stopped. The boss was a sturdy man in his 50s, with tattoos on his arms. He slowly stood up. "I've noticed you two sneaking around since earlier. Open your bags and let me see." My younger brother stepped in front of me. "We didn't take anything." "Oh, really?" The boss squinted. "Then why are all the shelves empty wherever your sister walked?" Only then did I notice that, in my haste, I hadn't controlled the collection range properly, and several shelves had been completely cleared, making it all too obvious. The boss grabbed an iron rod, so young and already up to no good. Just then, a scream came from the distance, followed by more shouts from others. At the end of the street, several figures stumbled this way, their postures so strange they didn't seem human. The boss's attention was drawn over. "What's going on?" The ring on my finger vibrated violently, almost leaping off. I grabbed my brother's hand. "Run." We dashed out of the hardware store, with the owner's roar and the sound of things collapsing behind us. I didn't look back. As I passed a nearby general store, I casually grabbed a stack of buckets and plastic basins piled high at the entrance. Then I ran desperately toward the hotel a few hundred meters away. Pedestrians on the street began to stir. Some stopped to look around, while others pulled out their phones to record. "Sis, look." My younger brother pointed toward the school. Thick smoke rose from the campus, and the sound of alarms filled the sky. A flood of students poured out of the school gate, screaming and shoving like a frightened herd. At the very back of the crowd, several figures moving strangely were lunging at the slower students. My stomach cramped. That wasn't an ordinary fight or accident. I saw a person biting into someone else's neck, blood splattering under the sunlight, glaringly vivid, earlier than the prophecy predicted. I murmured. As we turned into the hotel's side entrance, the street had already descended into chaos. The sounds of screeching brakes, collisions, and screams rose and fell in succession. In the hotel lobby, the front desk clerk was nervously speaking into the phone. When she saw us rushing in, drenched in sweat, she froze for a moment. "Upstairs. Someone has fallen ill." She stammered. "You'd better be careful." We didn't stop and headed straight for the elevator. The elevator kept rising, and I could hear the sound of glass shattering and more screams from downstairs. I gripped the room key tightly. My room was on the 7th floor, room 712. My brother's face was pale but calm. The elevator doors opened, and we both gasped. At the end of the hallway, a man covered in blood was lying on the ground, gnawing on something. Hearing the elevator, he slowly turned his head. His eyes had turned a murky grayish-white, his chin smeared with blood and bits of flesh. Seeing us, he let out an inhuman growl and crawled toward us on all fours. I screamed back to the elevator and pressed the door close button. But the creature was terrifyingly fast. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, a bloody hand reached in. The doors opened again, and that twisted face pressed close to us, a stench of decay rushing in. I had already taken a large wrench from the space and slammed it hard into the monster's head. After a dull thud, the zombie staggered but didn't fall. I took the chance to press the door close button, and this time it worked. Pale-faced, I whispered to my brother, "Take the stairs." We rushed out of the elevator on the 3rd floor and found a fire escape. As we went upstairs, I could hear screams and crashing sounds coming from every floor. We finally reached the 7th floor, where the hallway was completely empty. I quickly found the room door, unlocked it with trembling hands, and locked it behind us. Both of us collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. Outside the window, the city was descending into unprecedented chaos. In the distance, explosions rang out, and plumes of black smoke rose into the air. On the streets, crowds were scattering in panic, while the strangely moving zombies were growing in number. I looked down at the ring on my finger. It had finally stopped pulsing and lay quietly on my ring finger. "What do we do now?" my brother asked. I caught my breath and looked out the window at the crumbling city. We might have to stay in the hotel for a while. From the hallway came the sounds of growling and banging. Clearly, the zombies were coming up. I stared intently at the doorknob, terrified that it might suddenly turn. "Hurry," reinforced the room. I struggled to get up, my legs trembling with weakness. My brother reacted faster than I did, already dragging the desk to block the door. Together, we propped up the mattress and leaned it diagonally against the desk to add weight. The dressing table, drawers from the wardrobe, Even the mini frigivary thing we could move was piled up at the entrance. Shrill screams rose and fell outside the window. I pulled open a crack in the curtain and saw crowds on the street fleeing like headless flies. A bus had crashed crookedly into a roadside shop, its doors wide open as passengers screamed and scattered in all directions, while several blood-soaked people were crawling out from inside. "Sis, look at the news." My brother handed me his phone, the screen showing an emergency broadcast from the local TV station. The City Central Hospital has admitted over 50 aggressive patients, with symptoms including grayish skin, cloudy eyes, and extreme violent tendencies. Citizens are advised to lock doors and windows and stay indoors. The broadcast suddenly cut off, and the screen turned to static. My brother switched through several channels, all either broadcasting emergency announcements or already off the air. "The zombie outbreak is real," my brother murmured, his fingers trembling slightly. He was only 17, a year younger than me. I couldn't help but reach out and ruffle his messy hair. This younger brother, who had shared a bed with me growing up, was now half a head taller than me without me even noticing. "We'll be fine." I forced myself to calm down and started taking inventory of our supplies. We sat cross-legged on the carpet, closed our eyes, and mentally cataloged the supplies in the space. Alas, time is too tight. There are no vegetables, but there are plenty of staples and snacks, and enough drinking water. "Sis," my brother interrupted my self-blame. "If it weren't for you, we'd still be trapped at school." I took out from my space the hammer and wrench I had grabbed from the hardware store, a pile of snacks from the convenience store, toilet paper from the supermarket, and a simple medical kit. "How much space is left?" my brother asked. I sensed it. About half. Regret surged like a tide over the past year. I could have secretly hoarded more supplies, but my family's poverty and my mother's hard work kept me from taking even a single cent from home. Suddenly, a loud bang came from outside the window. We both rushed to the window and peeked out from behind the curtains. Thick black smoke billowed from the East Teaching building of the school across the street, and flames shot out of several windows. The scene on the playground was even more terrifying. Groups of students scattered in all directions like hunted sheep, while those strange moving, blood-soaked monsters chased after them from behind. I saw a girl wearing glasses get knocked down, and 3 zombies immediately leaned in to tear at her. A man who looked like a PE teacher swung a baseball bat but was quickly overwhelmed by more zombies. The school gate was packed with people trying to escape, but the crowd only made it impossible for anyone to get through. Watching my former teachers and classmates turn into zombies one after another, I couldn't hold back my tears. "Is that Qin Yushuan?" My younger brother suddenly pointed toward the center of the playground. I squinted my eyes. The girl with the high ponytail, who once strutted around leading her clique to bully me, was now sitting on the track in a disheveled mess. A zombie was staggering toward her. I instinctively gripped the window frame, my eyes widening in tension. Although Qin Yushuan had mocked my old clothes countless times, dumped trash into my desk, and spread disgusting rumors about me, watching a living person about to be torn apart, I still trembled with nervousness. "Don't look, sis," my brother said as he pulled the curtains shut. Just then, our door was suddenly slammed heavily. My brother and I stood frozen, staring at the door panel that had just shuttered. Dragging footsteps and low groans came from outside, the door sounds no human could make. My brother grabbed a hammer from the hardware store, while I gripped a large wrench. We held our breath, waiting, but the pounding didn't continue. The footsteps gradually faded away. The phone suddenly vibrated, startling all of us. It was Mom. I quickly answered and put it on speaker. "Ishin? Iju, are you two okay?" Mom's voice was filled with panic. "Something big is happening in the city," the TV says. "Mom, where are you?" I interrupted her. "I'm in the supermarket warehouse." "What about you two?" Her voice was choppy. "The signal poor." Mom works as a supermarket stocker, and her job is exhausting every day. Juzi and I are at the hotel across from the school. We're safe for now. I try to keep my voice steady. "Mom, listen to me. This isn't just a riot, it's a zombie virus. Lock the warehouse door. Don't let anyone in, not even people who look normal. The virus might have an incubation period. What? How is that possible? Mom. Trust sister. My brother leaned closer to the phone. She predicted this in advance. Do you have food and water with you right now? I'm in the supermarket warehouse. There's plenty of food and drink here. Mom's voice suddenly turned alert. Wait, I hear. Oh. A loud crash came from the other end of the line, followed by Mom's scream and the sound of something collapsing. Mom. I shouted into the phone, but all that answered me was static and muffled roars. The call suddenly dropped, and when I tried to call back, all I got was a busy signal. My fingers trembled uncontrollably, almost unable to hold the phone. My brother's face was as pale as paper, but he gripped my shoulders. Mom is smart. She'll be fine. We have to make sure we survive first before we can find her. I nodded mechanically, but my mind was completely blank. Mom was alone in a supermarket warehouse on the other side of the city while we were trapped here. Another explosion outside pulled my thoughts back. I couldn't help but lift the corner of the curtain again, and the sight before me made me gasp. The campus has completely turned into hell. Thick smoke rises from two teaching buildings, and mutilated corpses lie scattered across the playground. Hundreds of zombies roam the campus, some in school uniforms, others in the formal attire of invigilating teachers covered in blood, moving in grotesque ways. My gaze involuntarily searches for Qin Yushuan. Unexpectedly, she was still alive, hiding behind an overturned food cart, trembling all over. Her little clique was nowhere to be seen. They had either turned into zombies or scattered. Ironically, the once all-powerful queen of the school was now curled up alone in the ruins, helpless. Look, over by the gym, her brother whispered. A group of surviving students, led by a few teachers, are attempting to break out through the side door of the gymnasium. Armed with fire axes and chair legs as weapons, they form a protective circle, with the injured classmates in the middle. The leader appears to be Teacher Zhang from the physical education department, who swings an iron rod, knocking down the approaching zombies. Where are they going? I asked. Judging by the direction, it might be heading toward the dormitory building. The group moved slowly, with zombies constantly lunging from all directions. A girl was pulled out of the protective circle and instantly overwhelmed by several zombies. The screams were horrifying, and I instinctively closed my eyes. Just then, a loud crash of breaking glass came from downstairs, followed by more screams. On the 7th floor corridor where we were, footsteps and roars suddenly multiplied. The zombies have entered the hotel. My brother said grimly, Our door isn't strong enough. I looked around the cramped hotel room and realized with despair that this was no long-term refuge. Food is limited, and there is no escape route. Once the zombies break through the room door, my ring suddenly tightened, squeezing my finger painfully. I strongly felt that this room was not safe. We need to leave this place, I said. Where are you going? It's more dangerous outside. I looked out the window. On campus, Teacher Zhang's team had already lost more than half of its members, but they were getting closer to the dormitory building. Further away, the city was shrouded in thick smoke, and sirens wailed one after another, but no one responded. Our mother's fate is unknown at the other end of the city. Right now, it's not the time to flee. We can only stay in the room and observe the situation. We spent the night trembling with fear. The next morning, a series of urgent knocks sounded at the door. Not the thud of a zombie, but a rhythmic, human knock. Is anyone there? Please open the door, a woman's voice cried out, sobbing. The monsters are chasing me. My brother and I exchanged a glance, both seeing the same doubt in each other's eyes. In the apocalypse, the most dangerous thing isn't necessarily the zombies. After the girl outside cried out a few times, she suddenly fell silent. My brother and I pressed our ears against the door, holding our breath as we heard a dragging footsteps and low growls pass through the hallway, followed by the dull thud of a body hitting the floor. She was attacked. My brother's voice trembled. I shook my head, not daring to make a sound. A few seconds later, The door of room 713 next door burst open and quickly slammed shut, accompanied by a few muffled curses. "That's Qin Yuxuan's voice," I said, biting my lip. My brother frowned. How did she escape? She was still on the playground yesterday. We tiptoed over to the wall adjoining the next room and pressed our ears against it. The hotel's soundproofing is mediocre. I could clearly hear the argument from the other side. "What the hell? Didn't you say there was food here?" A man's voice roared. I recognized it as Lu Hao, the basketball team captain who often hung around Qin Yuxuan. "I thought room service would have." Qin Yuxuan's voice was choked with tears. "Who knew there wouldn't even be a bottle of water? Damn it, we're screwed." Another voice cut in, probably Qin Yuxuan's best friend Li Xiao. "It's all your fault for insisting on coming to this crappy hotel. Blame me, if I hadn't led you all to run, you'd have been devoured like those bookworms." After a scuffle and screams, Lu Hao's voice overpowered the others. "Everyone shut the hell up. Listen, outside is full of those zombies. We can only wait here for rescue now." "Wait for rescue?" Li Xiao shrieked. "There's no signal on TV or phones. Did you see what the streets look like? This is the apocalypse. How are we supposed to wait without even a drop of water?" I stepped back a few paces and exchanged a glance with my brother. "The situation next door is worse than we imagined. Ned, no food, no water. For panicked teenagers trapped together. Although the water hasn't been cut off yet and there's tap water in the bathroom, they want mineral water. At least we're safe for now," I whispered. My brother suddenly widened his eyes. "Sis, could they?" Before he could finish, Qin Yuxuan's voice came from next door as if she had just realized something. "Wait, Zhang Yixian, that poor girl and her brother Zhang Yizhu live next door. I saw her brother carrying a big bag of food into the hotel just a couple of days ago. By the way, she lives in the room right next to mine. She left the exam early today because that guy told her a zombie outbreak was coming. Maybe she left early to stock up on food." My blood ran cold instantly. That's right, the day before the college entrance exam, my brother did go to the supermarket to buy some bread and drinks. That's right, she even gave up the college entrance exam. She must have known the zombie outbreak was coming, which is why she handed in her paper early, that bitch. She ran off on her own. Let's go take her supplies. The sound of furniture being moved came from next door. It seemed they were preparing to come after me. I quickly pulled my brother back to the other side of the room. "They're coming for the supplies." My palms were sweating as I looked around at the door barricaded with furniture. "This door won't hold for long." My brother grabbed the hammer he had taken from the hardware store. "We have weapons. 4 against 3, no match for them. Besides, Lu Hao is on the school basketball team. He's really strong." My mind raced, thinking fast, when suddenly a flash of inspiration hit me. "Wait, we can use this space." A violent banging on the door interrupted my words. It wasn't our door, something was slamming against theirs. "Zombies!" Li Xiao's scream pierced through the wall. "They found us." Chaotic footsteps and the sound of heavy objects being shoved against the door came from next door. I took the opportunity to check our barricades again, the desk, mattress, dresser, all the heavy objects piled behind the door. The window was another vulnerability, but we were on the 7th floor, safe for now. The banging continued for a few minutes, then suddenly stopped. Maybe the zombie couldn't break down the door and left? After a dead silence, Qin Yuxuan's lowered voice came faintly. "Wait until dark. Their vision is poor. Fire axe. Break the door." My heart tightened. They planned to attack us under the cover of night. The sky was gradually darkening. After the city lost power, only sporadic fires lit up the night sky. My younger brother and I lit candles and, by the faint light, prepared the weapons we had grabbed from the hardware store. Steel pipes, hammers, fruit knives, large wrenches. "Remember the plan," I whispered. "Once the door is breached, I'll collect the weapons and you attack." My brother nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. He was only 17, supposed to be worrying about his grades and the girl he had a crush on, but now he was facing a life-and-death struggle. "Sis," my younger brother suddenly said, "What if? What if we can't hold them off?" "There is no what if." I interrupted him, grabbing his hand. Our father passed away early, and our mother struggled to raise us. I swore to protect my brother. We will survive, and then we'll go find Mom. A harsh clang of metal came from the next room, followed by Qin Yuxuan's curse. Easy. Do you want to attract every zombie on this floor? They are prying the door open. My brother and I immediately took our battle positions. My left hand, wearing the ring, gripped a steel pipe tightly, while my right hand held a fruit knife. My brother stood slightly behind me, holding a hammer with both hands. Every second of waiting felt like an hour. Finally, a faint metallic scraping sound came from our door lock. They're here. I held my breath. The lock let out a soft click, followed by Qin Yuxuan's hushed cheer. It's open. The door was pushed open a crack, but immediately blocked by the furniture we had stacked. The person outside cursed and began shoving the door with force. Zhang Yixin, we know you're in there. Lu Hao's voice was full of menace. Hand over the food, and we'll leave. My brother and I remained silent. Our bodies tensed up. The gap in the door grew wider, and I saw Lu Hao's ferocious face and the gleaming fire axe in his hand. Why waste words on them? Qin Yuxuan shrieked. They're hoarding supplies just to watch us die. With a furious roar, Lu Hao swung the axe and struck the furniture, blocking the way. Wood chips flew as a crack split open the desk. A few more strikes, and they would break in. Retract, I shouted. Just as Lu Hao raised the axe again, I focused my mind, brought my left hand close to the crack in the door, and the ring on my finger grew hot. The fire axe vanished into thin air. The fire axe had entered my space. Lu Hao remained in the posture of holding the axe aloft, a look of bewilderment on his face. What the hell? His younger brother gave him no time to react, slamming a hammer onto Lu Hao's hand that was gripping the doorframe. Lu Hao let out a loud cry and quickly withdrew his hand, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking and his screams of agony. I took the opportunity to push the door with all my might, but Li Xiao and another boy immediately filled the gap, and the door crack widened again. Bitch, give me back the axe, Qin Yuxuan screamed hysterically, reaching out to grab me. I slammed the steel pipe hard onto her wrist. She cried out in pain and pulled her hand back. But they outnumbered me, and the door was slowly being pushed open. The younger brother attacked any limb that reached in with a hammer, but he was outnumbered. Sis, I can't hold him off, the younger brother shouted. Just at this critical moment, a chilling collective moan came from the end of the corridor. 5 or 6 zombies, attracted by the sounds of the fight, were staggering toward us. Fuck, zombies are coming. Li Xiao turned around and instantly turned pale. Qin Yuxuan and her group were caught in a dilemma whether to continue breaking down the door to grab supplies or flee back to their own rooms. This hesitation cost them their lives. The zombie at the front, a female hotel staff member in uniforms, suddenly accelerated and lunged at the boy standing at the back. The boy, who often helped spread rumors about Qin Yuxuan, hadn't even reacted before he was bitten on the neck. Blood splattered across the corridor wall, and his scream abruptly stopped. Back to the room. Hurry, Lu Hao. Ignoring the injury on his hand, turned and ran. Qin Yuxuan and Li Xiao also gave up attacking the door and fled back to room 713, screaming. The horde of zombies, stimulated by fresh blood, mostly lunged at the fallen boy, but 2 turned toward our half-open door. Close the door, my brother shouted, slamming his shoulder against the door panel. We pushed the door together, and one zombie's arm got caught, its rotting flesh oozing pus and blood. But it felt no pain and kept crazily forcing its way in. I raised the fruit knife and stabbed it deep into its grayish-white eyeball. The blade sank straight into its brain, and the zombie finally went limp. Another zombie took the chance to squeeze its head through the door gap, its rotting teeth just a few centimeters from my face. My brother swung the hammer and slammed it hard into its temple. A dull crack of the skull breaking echoed, and this zombie fell as well. We used all our strength to finally close the door and piled up the broken furniture again. In the hallway, the bitten boy had already become one of the zombies, joining the attack on room 713. My brother and I collapsed to the ground, drenched in sweat and blood. From next door came the continuous sound of banging on the door and screams. but we had no time to care. We survived. My brother gasped. After just 2 days of peace, the ring began to tremble violently again, more intensely than ever before. What kind of danger is this time? At 3 in the morning, I finally realized where the danger was coming from. Qin Yuxuan started pounding on the wall, the sound of her blows accompanied by her low curses. You bitch, once I break through this wall, I'll skin you alive, eat your flesh, and drink your blood. They were going to break through the wall between our 2 rooms. The zombie outbreak had been going on for 4 days. They had no food left and seemed unable to hold out any longer, so they decided to take a desperate risk. The wall between the 2 rooms was hollow, it didn't block sound. And presumably, it would be easy to break through as well. There were 3 of them, and Lu Hao was tall and strong, making it hard for us to be a match for him. What should we do? My brother and I were so nervous, our hearts felt like they were about to jump out. I thought for a moment and whispered to my brother for a while. Sis, are you sure you want to do this? My brother's voice was hoarse. We hadn't slept well in 2 days, our eyes bloodshot. I nodded, my fingers unconsciously rubbing the ring our father had left behind. In the next room was the bully who had humiliated me day after day, the demon who poured spoiled food into my desk, and now the robber trying to steal our means of survival. It's not murder, I said softly. More to convince myself, just not saving them. I pulled out the hotel fire alarm diagram I had retrieved from the space. When I took Lu Hao's fire axe yesterday, I also grabbed the hotel employee handbook from his pocket. Now, this handbook has become our best weapon. I pointed to the location of the fire alarm button on the blueprint. The button is here, next to the elevator on the 7th floor. Once pressed, the sprinkler system for the entire building will activate, and the noise will attract more zombies upstairs. I'll go press it. My brother stared at the blueprint, his brows furrowed. That's too dangerous, sis. Doing this will expose us to danger. So we'll prepare first. After triggering the alarm, I'll come back immediately. We'll use ropes to descend from the window to the 6th floor, then circle back to observe the situation. The plan was risky, but the constant warnings from the ring made me uneasy. We must resolve the threat next door as quickly as possible so we can focus on the next crisis. The operation begins. My younger brother reinforced the door frame with a steel pipe from the disassembled bed frame, while I took out the rope I had gathered from the hardware store and began braiding it, making it thicker and stronger so it could bear a person's weight. With the rope ready, we immediately set to work. I gently moved the furniture, blocking the door, creating a gap just wide enough for one person to slip through sideways. The stench of decay rushed in from the hallway, and 3 zombies were still lingering in front of room 713. I held my breath and moved along the wall toward the elevator. The 10-meter distance felt as long as a marathon. My sneakers stepped into a puddle of sticky liquid, nearly causing me to slip. Looking down, I saw the remains of the bitten boy, only half a skeleton and some rotting flesh. Finally, I reached the fire alarm button, took a deep breath, and slammed the red plastic cover. The piercing sound of the alarm instantly echoed throughout the entire hotel. The sprinkler system activated, and water mist sprayed from the ceiling sprinkler heads. The zombies at the end of the corridor turned their heads in unison, their grayish-white eyes locking onto the direction of the sound, which was my location. Oh no. I felt a chill run through my entire body. The next second, the entire hotel came alive. The stairwell echoed with the clatter of footsteps, not just on the 7th floor, but zombies from every level were stirred, all converging on the 7th floor and gathering toward the source of the sound. I bolted, and behind me came a chilling collective moan. The door of room 713 suddenly cracked open, revealing Qin Yuxuan's pale face, Zhang Yixian. What are you? Her words turned into a scream. The first 3 zombies that spotted me gave up the chase and lunged at a closer prey. Qin Yuxuan was too late to close the door. A zombie's arm got stuck in a gap. Help! How gu xiao xiao! Qin Yuxuan's scream was heart-wrenching. I seized the chance to rush back to room 712. My brother yanked me inside, and together we pushed the door shut. In the corridor, the door of room 713 was completely smashed open, and more zombies poured in. Qin Yushuan's scream reached its peak, then suddenly turned into an eerie gurgling sound, before finally falling silent. Is she dead? My brother's voice trembled. I didn't answer, continuing to observe through the peephole. The zombie horde filled room 713. Through the half-open door, I saw Qin Yushuan lying on her back in the hallway at a grotesque angle, her neck torn open with a large gash, blood splattering across the wall. Her eyes were still open, staring blankly at the ceiling, but the corners of her mouth twitched eerily. Then, the most terrifying thing happened. The deceased Qin Yushuan suddenly convulsed, and her fingers began to twitch. Her eyeballs gradually turned into the grayish-white color characteristic of zombies, and her mouth opened and closed mechanically. She's mutated. I stepped back, my stomach churning. We need to leave immediately. The rope was already tied to the radiator, and we slowly descended from the window. The hotel's outer wall was slippery. My younger brother went down to the 6th floor first, with a hammer tucked into his waist, planning to break the glass and enter the room on the 6th floor. What a coincidence, the window of the 6th floor room was half open. My brother slipped inside through it. I followed closely behind, and just as I was about to enter the 6th floor window, the sound of shattering glass came from above. The door to our room 712 had been opened by the zombies, and the glass was smashed. My brother and I narrowly managed to switch to room 612 downstairs. I quickly cut the rope first to prevent anyone from coming down along it. To our surprise, room 612 was empty, unoccupied, a large, luxurious suite. It seemed the 6th floor was for high-end rooms. The high-end room was indeed different. The door was a sturdy, large copper door, the glass was bulletproof, and the walls were soundproof. Meanwhile, the fire sprinklers on the 7th floor did not affect the 6th floor. We were relatively safe. I started to worry about my mom and wanted to contact her, but the network signal had already been cut off. My brother and I managed to survive for 2 months in room 612. During those 2 months, we were relatively safe, but we had no news of our mother and were extremely worried about her. A week after the zombie outbreak, the power and water supply were cut off. On the day of the zombie outbreak, I collected a lot of buckets and plastic basins from the entrance of a general store next to a hardware shop. Before the water outage, I kept filling buckets and plastic basins with water, so there was enough water for daily use. One day 2 months later, I crouched in a bathtub, carefully washing my hair. My long hair had become tangled, but I couldn't bear to cut it off. Mom loved my long hair the most. Sis, have some porridge. My brother handed me half a bowl of porridge. In my space, I keep an alcohol stove that I picked up before. Later, I bought a box of solid alcohol on Pinduoduo, planning to go on a barbecue in the wild with my mom and brother after the college entrance exam. So, there are bowls and chopsticks in the space. Every day, we cook some porridge, boil instant noodles, or eat self-heating rice. There are no vegetables, but the few boxes of bananas and apples I got for free from the fruit shop can supplement our vitamins. For the past 2 months, we've been hiding in this room 612 like 2 mice, surviving on the supplies in my space. Fortunately, the ring space seems to have a preservation function. Whatever goes in stays exactly as it was when taken out. How much is left? My brother asked. We take inventory of supplies every day. I closed my eyes and sensed the space. 1 case of bottled water, 10 packs of biscuits, 7 cans of canned food, 2 bags of rice, 20 apples, some snacks. My younger brother's glasses glinted in the sunlight. The lenses were already cracked, barely held together with tape. He had lost a lot of weight, his school uniform hanging loosely on his frame, but he looked quite spirited, with a much more mature look in his eyes. Disaster forces a child to grow up in an instant. The first few weeks were the hardest. We dared not turn on the lights or speak loudly. To save water and avoid the sound of flushing the toilet, we even used plastic bags for our waste, tied them tightly, and threw them out the window. At night, we could always hear the howls of zombies and the screams of survivors. Several times, other survivors attempted to enter the hotel, but were either driven away or devoured by the zombie horde. We witnessed the ugliest side of human nature: parents killing each other over a pack of cookies, friends pushing their companions toward zombies to save themselves, and even hunting squads that preyed on lone survivors for sport. "I'll keep watch today," my brother said as he climbed onto the observation post he had built from tables and chairs, carefully lifting a corner of the curtain. We took turns monitoring the situation outside the window. The city had long lost its water and power supply, with occasional plumes of black smoke rising in the distance, indicating that there were still survivors moving about. The number of zombies wandering the streets had decreased compared to the early days, possibly having spread to other areas. "Sis," my brother suddenly lowered his voice. "Someone's coming." I immediately crouched by the window to observe. At the end of the street, 5 fully armed individuals were cautiously moving toward the hotel. They wore modified motorcycle gear, all tall and burly, carrying various weapons and moving with trained precision. These people are survivors, but they don't look like good guys. I noticed multiple bulging supply bags hanging from their waists, some stained with suspicious dark red marks. The bald man in the lead made a gesture, and the team spread out to guarded the hotel entrance while the rest entered the lobby. 10 minutes later, faint lights flickered on floor by floor. They were holding flashlights, searching the rooms. They're scavenging for supplies. My heart tightened. They'll search the rooms floor by floor. My brother's face turned pale. "What do we do?" I looked around the room. "For 2 months, we have turned this room into a small fortress. All the furniture is piled behind the door. The windows are covered with blackout sheets, and nothing that can make a sound is left on the floor." I made a quick decision. Put everything into the space, and let's hide. Within 10 minutes, the room looked as if no one had ever lived in it. I even used the space to take away the sheets we had slept on and the cookie crumbs on the floor. In the end, we chose the most dangerous yet safest hiding spot: the top of the wardrobe. The wardrobe was nearly 2 meters tall, with doors that ran from top to bottom and an open top, seemingly designed for storing large items like quilts. We climbed onto the top of the wardrobe, covered ourselves with a quilt, lay flat in the shadows, and held our breath, waiting. The muffled sound of boots stepping on a corridor carpet grew closer from afar. I gripped my younger brother's hand tightly, both of us drenched in cold sweat. "Start clearing the 6th floor." A gruff male voice sounded from outside the door. "Same rules as always: check for survivors first, then search for supplies." Someone was unlocking the door to our room. "This door looks sturdy. Is it easy to open, Lao Lu?" I'm a professional locksmith. Picking this kind of lock is a piece of cake. "Don't worry, I'll have it done in 2 minutes." The lock clicked open. Our door was kicked open violently, and the beam of flashlight swept across the empty room. "Damn, it's empty," the locksmith known as Lao Lu grumbled. 2 men walked into the room. Through the slats of the wardrobe's louver doors, I saw that the leader was a burly bald man with a gold chain around his neck. The other was a tall, thin man with a skull tattoo on his right arm. "Search carefully," the bald man said. "Last month, we missed a girl at that hotel in the east of the city. Later, we found her hiding in the ceiling. I haven't had a woman in a long time. I want to find one in this hotel to have some fun." My blood nearly froze, and I held my breath, not moving a muscle. The tall, thin man began rummaging through drawers and cupboards, stabbing the mattress with a knife, and even lifting the toilet tank lid to check inside. The bald man, meanwhile, inspected the windows and walls, searching for hidden compartments. "Boss, this room is suspiciously clean." The tall, thin man frowned. "There's not even a single strand of hair." The bald man narrowed his eyes and suddenly looked up at the wardrobe. My heart was pounding so fast it felt like it might burst out of my chest. He stepped closer, one hand resting on the wardrobe handle. Just at that critical moment, a shout came from the hallway. "Boss, found a storage room on the 5th floor. There are cans and liquor." The bald man's hand stopped. "How many?" "Several dozen crates. The guys are moving them downstairs." The bald man spat and turned to leave. "Guess this floor got lucky. Let's go. Don't let those starving bastards waste all the good stuff." The tall, skinny guy took one last look around the room before following him out. We heard them kicking open the other doors one by one, but they didn't search any room as thoroughly as ours. Only after the footsteps had completely faded for half an hour did we dare to climb down from the wardrobe and lock and barricade the door again. My limbs were stiff and aching from maintaining the same position for so long, and my brother's face was as pale as paper. Will they? Will they come back? My brother's voice trembled, on the verge of tears. Once they find the food, they'll definitely search every floor thoroughly. Right, sis? I'm scared. I comforted my brother. They've already searched this building, including our room. They won't come back. Don't be afraid, your big sister is here. Sure enough, no one came to search this hotel again. My brother and I endured another long month in the hotel. The number of zombies seemed to have decreased. There were no longer so many wandering figures on the streets, but occasionally we could still hear distant growls. Survivors began to venture out more boldly to search for supplies. On the streets, military figures can often be seen, eliminating zombies. One morning, I opened my phone, and a few minutes later, it suddenly vibrated. There was a network signal. The screen flashed with the word Mom, and my fingers trembled so much I could barely press the answer button. Mom was still alive. I had almost thought she had met with misfortune. Ishin? Iju. Are you still alive? Mom's voice came through the receiver, choked with suppressed sobs. Mom, we're fine. We're at the hotel. I almost shouted, and my brother immediately leaned in. His eyes red. Mom works as a stock clerk at a supermarket. When the zombie outbreak began, she was trapped in the supermarket warehouse. Fortunately, the warehouse was well stocked with supplies. She locked the warehouse door tight and managed to survive the most dangerous period with those provisions. Don't run around, I'm safe here. The military is clearing out the zombies. In a few more days, I'll drive over to pick you up. Mom's voice was firm and urgent. Tell me the address. You have to hold on and wait for me. Once it's a bit safer, I'll come get you. After hanging up the phone, my brother and I hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down our faces uncontrollably. Hope had finally arrived. A month later, the city's zombies were almost completely cleared out. The military, in cooperation with survivor organizations, gradually regained control of the main streets. That morning, a familiar old silver SUV pulled up in front of the hotel. The car door swung open, and my mother rushed out. My brother and I dashed downstairs and threw ourselves into her arms. You've lost so much weight. Both of you. Mom touched our faces and pulled us both into her arms, tears streaming uncontrollably. Mom, we're fine, my brother said, his voice choked with emotion. We survived. Mom wiped away her tears and said firmly, Come on, let's leave this place and head to the survivor base. We quickly gathered the remaining supplies and stored them all in the ring space. Mom's car was already stocked with food, water, and weapons. We could finally leave this hellish city. As the car drove out of the urban area, the ruins and charred buildings along the way silently told the cruelty of the apocalypse. Occasionally, a few scattered zombies could be seen wandering in the distance, but they no longer posed a threat. The base is in the suburbs of the neighboring city, protected by the military, and it has medical stations and planting areas, Mom explained as she drove. There. We'll be much safer and won't have to live in fear anymore. My brother and I exchanged a glance and finally breathed a sigh of relief. The nightmare, it seemed, was truly about to end. However, fate always loves to play tricks. Just as we were about to enter the highway, a dark, oppressive mass suddenly appeared on the distant Arizona zombie horde. Oh no. Mom yanked the steering wheel. How'd they end up here? I thought the zombies had been mostly wiped out by the military. The number of zombies far exceeded imagination. They surged forward like a tidal wave, frenziedly lunging at anything that moved. Several zombies slammed into our car, and the windshield cracked into a web of lines. We can't keep driving forward, I shouted. Find somewhere to hide. Mom floored the accelerator, and the car rushed into an abandoned factory by the roadside. We crashed through the rusty iron gate, sped into the factory building, quickly turned off the engine, locked the main door, then dashed to a meeting room on the second floor, locked the doors and windows, and held our breath. The growls of the zombies grew closer as they pounded on the factory gate, the clanging of the iron door sending chills down our spines. Will they get in? My younger brother asked in a low voice. Don't make a sound. Mom held our hands tightly. We huddled in the car, listening to the sounds outside. The zombie horde lingered outside the factory for a while, eventually dispersing as they found no living humans. Are we safe? My younger brother whispered. For now. Mom let out a breath. When it gets dark, we'll find another way around. I looked down at the ring on my finger. It was slightly warm, as if reminding meth danger wasn't over yet. Outside the abandoned factory, the groans of the zombies gradually faded away. In the night, faint explosions could be heard, one after another, rumbling endlessly. We waited until the next morning. After confirming the area was safe, before restarting the car and continuing toward the survivor base. However, fate seemed to be testing us. The fuel tank was running dry. We can't go on. There's not enough fuel, Mom said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her brow furrowed. We need to find a place to refuel. But in this desolate outskirts, the gas stations had long been looted clean. We had no choice but to push forward, praying we could reach the survivor base before running out of gas completely. The car finally sputtered to a halt on a desolate road. All around was dead silence, broken only by the rustle of wind through dry grass. We'll have to walk, Mom said quietly, pulling out the last of our supplies from the trunk. We had only taken a few steps when suddenly, two dark figures lunged out from behind an abandoned vehicle on the roadside to zombies. Their rotting faces were hideous and terrifying, their pale eyes fixed on us. Low growls rumbling from their throats. Run, Mom shoved me and my brother away, but she was grabbed by one of the zombies. Mom, I screamed, grabbing the steel pipe in my hand and smashing it hard against the zombie's head. My younger brother also charged forward, plunging his dagger into the eye socket of another zombie. Just as we were trapped in a desperate situation, the roar of an engine came from after a military jeep was speeding toward us. Get down, shouted the soldier in the vehicle. The three of us hit the ground at the same time, and then gunfire erupted. Bang, bang. The heads of two zombies instantly exploded, and they collapsed heavily to the ground. We slumped to the ground, gasping for air. The jeep came to a stop, and several fully armed soldiers jumped out, quickly checking our condition. Are you all right? The leading soldier asked. It's nothing. Mom replied, trembling. Thank you. We are the patrol team from the Eastern Survivor Base, the soldier said. Are you heading to the base? We nodded. Get in. We'll escort you there. On the way, we talked about the zombie horde we encountered yesterday. Only you had come out a day later. That was the last large batch of zombies. We gathered them together, drove them to an open area 30 kilometers east, where we had buried landmines and explosives. They were all blown up last night. Escorted by the military, we finally arrived at the survivor base. Inside the towering walls was a well-organized living area. Tents, makeshift houses, medical stations, planting areas. Everything here is striving to restore life as it was before the apocalypse. After months without seeing sunlight, my brother and I can finally move freely here. We were assigned to a temporary shelter, underwent physical examinations, and received basic living supplies. You are safe now, an officer told us. The zombies have been largely wiped out by the military, and the remaining ones are being gradually cleared. In the days that followed, life at the base gradually settled into a routine. Power was restored, communications were rebuilt, and the survivors began to divide labor and cooperate in rebuilding their home. My brother and I picked up our books again. When the zombie outbreak struck, we were still in the middle of the college entrance exam. Now, the world has changed. A temporary school was set up within the base where my younger brother continued his studies, while I, through the base's recommendation, entered medical school. Sis, do you think we can really go back to the way things were one day? My brother asked me. I looked at the ring on my hand, still quietly resting on my finger, as if those days of struggling to survive were just a nightmare. It won't be exactly the same, I said softly, but we will live better